of the podcast today, and that is a recent story that was reported by Fightful, and it essentially was giving you a little extra details about that very, I'd say, iconic confrontation between Bret and Shawn Michaels in 2010. As everybody knows, uh, Shawn Michaels played an important role in what we call in wrestling the Montreal Screwjob at Survivor Series in 1997. And apparently, Tyson Kidd played an important role in getting Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart to reconcile. Their feud between Shawn and Bret basically lasted for years before they eventually reconciled. And in 2010, Bret Hart basically returned, and I think his first segment on Raw was between him and Shawn Michaels. So in an interview with the Takedown on SI, I think that's Sports Illustrated, Natalia shared how her husband, TJ Wilson, known as Tyson Kidd, helped facilitate their reconciliation. She said TJ had something to Bret like, or had said something to Bret like, I had a really great talk with Shawn and he was awesome. He was so nice to me and he was so nice to Natty. He was just such a cool guy. He was giving me advice and being really helpful. Shawn had said that he had felt so bad about everything that had happened with you guys in the past. TJ was the one that opened up the conversation between Bret and Shawn for them to kind of reconcile. So we can all thank TJ for being the person that opened that door, because TJ is somebody that Bret really respects and he trusts his word. Shawn was so nice to us, and I think Shawn, for a long time, felt, I think he felt bad, Natalia said. Natalia also commented on how wrestling has changed over the years, as she noted that it was very cutthroat back in the day, whereas the business was quote unquote kinder these days. I also grabbed another piece of a story that was kind of around the same time of this reporting story. In a recent interview with Bret from the Wrestling Classic during the Vancity Card Show, Bret was asked to comment on on when he found out about the appearance from his recent appearance on Raw between himself and Gunther. He said maybe 4 or 5 days ahead of time, they called and asked me if I wanted to go down. I was like, well, what else am I doing? It was really special. That was the Raw in Calgary. I didn't expect that kind of reaction. Of course, it's been a long time since I walked out in front of a Calgary crowd. When asked about Gunther saying that Hart was second to his favorite wrestler, Goldberg, the legend simply said, I think Bill got off light. So one last jab in there from Bret Hart. But do you guys remember? Did you guys watch that specific episode when it aired between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart? I felt like it was pretty big in wrestling circles at the time.
I watched it.
Yeah, did you watched it live?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and we were talking a little about this off air, but it was like there was like this jolt of like kind of like positive energy during that time, because that was a little middling during like 2009, 8, 9, 10 in terms of like WWE and just its product. It wasn't as great as it is now, and this was a very big I'd say moment in that time period. This was when TNA, I think, switched to Impact, and that was when it was being run by Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff. I think Dixie Carter was still in the circle of executives, but
she was.
Yeah, so they were just influential in the creative process, let's say that. And yeah, I mean, when I first saw the segment, I mean, I was freaking out, because when I got back into wrestling in 2006, in early 2006, I was reading all about, the lore that I missed and that I didn't really look into before. And that was Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart. Like, a lot of that really just resonated with me. I had both of their DVDs, both of their documentaries. I read Bret Hart's book, which was like 500 pages long. I remember buying it in 2008 at a Barnes and Noble. I think I still have the book somewhere, but I don't know where I put it. But it was really good. And yeah, I was just very invested in both of their careers and just reading up on it. And Shawn Michaels, of course, you know, I was seeing his basically twilight of his career, but a lot of people would say that his second half of his career was probably some of his best work that he's ever done. And again, seeing Shawn with Bret Hart, I mean, I thought that was something really special. I don't know, what did you guys think about that segment, David? If you had any thoughts.
I remember I wasn't watching wrestling that much when that went down,
Right.
and I happened to just have like a Monday free because I was actually in sports around that time of the year and just that time in life. And I remember I remember being excited, and then I also remember being like semi excited for what was going on in TNA because like Rob Van Dam had a cage match that night, and it was like one of their first Mondays, if not their first. So like I just remember like actually like for the first time in a while I had been like excited to like see what was gonna go down, and they knocked out the Brett segment right away. So after that, I was just kind of like, It didn't really keep me around too much after that. But it was nice to like watch them hug it out.
Yeah,
I was flipping, well, I wasn't flipping channels. I was flipping streaming links. But yeah, I was bouncing between TNA Impact. Was that Impact? Was that when Jeff Hardy came back or went to TNA or Impact? Sorry. Because I
That
know
was
he
his
had,
second run in TNA.
right. And that was like when he had like the weird short black hair, wasn't it? Something like
Probably.
that. Yeah,
That
I remember he had like that. He had like a huge run with WWE. He was like the WWE champion and all that shit the year before, and then uh, I think he had another drug violation and got suspended, and I think they let him go, and then he ended up in Impact in TNA. So, I mean that was just a wild sight to see. What about you, Andres? Do you remember that segment? What
oh
did you
yeah,
think
yeah,
about that take place? Because I know you're a big Shawn Michaels fan.
yeah. No, it was unbelievable that they actually were able to be like see them both in the ring together for the first time. Um, I do remember the exchange of words too, like Bret Hart saying, like, obviously, yeah, like I had something to do with it, but I still firmly believe you deserved it. I was like,
Yes.
oh shit, like damn. But no, it was a really good segment. I mean, it was nice to see them hug it at the end, and I think they did a nice thing too, where Sean looked like he was gonna give him a sweet chin music because
Hmm.
there was a point where he like turned, and I'm like, whoa, no. But no, it was beautiful. It was awesome. But to David's point too, like I think like after that, like during that era, I was like, okay,
yeah.
something else to watch.
I was like,
Something
oh
else to
wait,
look
he
like.
I was
It's
like, he can't
big.
wrestle. Never mind.
Yeah. But no, the segment was awesome. I actually found out too, like um, Brett and Shawn actually spoke before they actually saw each other in the back and said hello, but they wanted to not talk much at all. They wanted to save everything for the ring.
Keep it
So they actually got it on camera
family.
too. They showed them like Brett was sitting with I think with Natalia and stuff, and actually Shawn went up to him, said hello, and then just like walked away. They both
Damn.
had that same agreement. They're like, okay, we're gonna say what we actually have to say to each other in the ring. And I'm like, that's cool. That's
I
some
mean,
good ass TV right there.
yeah, I can't imagine like I mean being Bret Hart. I mean, or Shawn, you know what, or Vince for that matter, because it's. I
God.
mean, like
Mhm.
I guess he was inducted in 2006, so I mean he had to have had interactions with Vince, obviously.
Oh
Otherwise,
yeah.
there's no reason why he wouldn't be inducted. But yeah, I'm just very curious what their mindset was because. I mean, Brett held on to that for a long time, and I feel, I mean, and now I guess the Goldberg thing that has lasted much
Replace.
longer than
Yeah.
than the
That's his
Shawn
new high.
Michaels. Yeah,
Goldberg came around and HBK does, or I'm sorry, Bret Hart doesn't hate Shawn anymore. So
I mean that happened not too long after, so now that one just survived longer because I guess he's cool with Shawn. I mean, I think he thinks Vince is a POS just based on probably those recent allegations.
He
And
yeah,
is.
I don't know if he I think he forgave him at that moment, but yeah, I think there was still um
I think
some
he
kind of
never
issues.
trusted him ever again. And then it's like you
It's just
got
business.
his family members that work backstage. So he knows enough about that guy to not ever care about him ever again.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess he would treat it as business, and I think in his own heart of hearts, no pun intended, um, he did want to get back in front of that wrestling crowd and just have some kind of sense of finality to it. I mean, he did have a run. They even gave him the United States Championship, if you guys remember. He was the United
And
States champion for like a month or two, something like that. I think John Cena may have helped him win
Yeah.
that. That was I gotta say that was kind of cool because I never saw Bret holding a title before, so I think it was cool for what it was, including the WrestleMania 26 match that they had. It made logical sense for him to face Vince, but it was no five-star classic by any imagination. Do you guys remember watching that match at WrestleMania 26?
Oh yeah.
It was like the whole Hart family against
Yeah.
Vince McMahon. And if you didn't, I mean, I'd still watch it just because I think it was entertaining. But there were periods where like he had to pull out a chair and he sat down.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think he used that chair to then hit him, so that was good. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like tough for me to watch because like I didn't even watch like too much WWF Brett, but like it was like so far from like Brett versus Booker T and stuff like that that
I
it was
mean,
just
yeah,
like, oh, what?
yeah. I mean, he was what per like early 50s then, I think. Yeah, it was like early 50s, and I mean, he's had a stroke and all that, so I guess you got to give him that. And I mean, I'd rather him be in the ring and do something than I guess not at all. You know, and if it's something that he wanted to do, I think that was good. And obviously now I'm kind of hoping that there's a Brett Goldberg segment in the future.
Crown jewel, baby.
Yeah, Crown
no,
Jewel.
no, no,
You know
no.
they'll pay
That's
that extra money for that
that's where
shit.
people's dreams come true is Crown Jewel. That's
Uh,
where storylines stay in a vacuum, I feel like, and then get ignored.
I think Brett's gonna stand on business with this one.
Yeah.
I
Chris, how about you? What did you think about that segment? If I
I mean,
remember.
I was super hyped because I was a big Bret Hart fan as well. So just seeing him, and I was wondering, did he dye his hair? Because I was like,
Yeah, he
they
did.
got brown hair.
Well, it was
No.
just wet, but he dyed it. You know, it was brownish, whatever.
Yeah,
Typical
That's-
Vince protocol.
He
But it
just
was-
did Triple H.
it was cool just hearing. Did they give him his old music or did they do like a new variation of it? I don't remember.
That was the remix. Yeah, I didn't like the remix.
Yeah,
But yeah, I prefer his older one.
I mean that was like essentially all the way through WrestleMania, as far as like him kind of showing up more or less, right? Because
Yeah, I
what
mean, he was basically on TV. I think most of that WrestleMania season.
what month was that? When did that match or that segment actually happen? Was it like a summer
Between
thing?
Shawn Michaels?
Mm-hmm.
No, that was at the beginning of that year, 2010. So
Okay.
it was January 4th, 2010, because I looked it up.
Okay.
And then that basically kind of kickstarted that WrestleMania season because he had the match that year that in that WrestleMania, and that was probably, I mean, late March, early April, whenever 26 happened in Arizona.
Huh.
But yeah, and then he had that United States Championship run afterwards, I think. And then he was kind of like an on again, off again manager as well. I feel like he might have even been like a general manager for like a little bit too.
Is that when they were going through
Everybody
different
was a
general
general
managers?
manager.
Yeah.
You're right, that's true. Everyone is a general manager. That might have been the Raw guest host thing that lasted like years. That felt like forever at the time.
Was that the not to backtrack, but that Jeff Hardy TNA thing? Was that the beginning of the drugged out Victory Road match or whatever it was?
That's what
That
that's what
probably was in that contract frame
Yeah.
Victory.
because when he went there, his last part of business was probably putting over Punk.
That was 2011. So yeah, so it was like if he debuted, because I think Jeff Hardy debuted during one of those like head-to-head.
He did because for whatever reason, other than Jeff Hardy and Rob Van Dam, like in typical Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan fucking manner, they're like, "Oh, I know what will keep up with WWE in the ratings, us."
Oh yeah,
And then they had that whole thing where like fucking the outsiders kept trying to get them to join them, or like kept trying to hang around, and Hogan's like, "It's different this time, boys."
Wasn't Vince Russo back too?
They were the band in
band,
NWO
yeah.
font, and they wouldn't let Waltman in the building. Like that was part of the whole like storyline.
Yeah,
That
it
was
was
Scott.
wild.
Or
They had
was it
Scott
Waltman, too?
Hall, they had Sean Waltman, Jeff Jarrett, Jeff Hardy, Ric Flair. That's when Ric Flair was like, "I'm unretired, baby."
This is when he had that woo off with Jay Lethal that was always showing up on the internet.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, I think his retirement lasted only 2 years. That's crazy. Not even 2 years.
2 days.
Oh my God. Like,
You mean
you
the
need
the
to go-
post Shawn Michael match?
Yeah,
Like that
'cause
return?
Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair was 2008. That was at WrestleMania 24.
Okay.
That was like in April. And then this, like his debut was like 2010. It was like between January and February of that year. I don't remember. I think it might have been that same episode. So it's crazy. Yeah, Nasty Boys, Orlando Jordan, Bubba the
Oh my
Love
God.
Sponge. Yeah, they
Yeah.
were all there.
Yeah.
And that was also like the everyone was like, "Why does Hogan keep bringing his friends?"
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
I remember my friends put that on because they were all kind of like happy about like seeing all these guys coming back. But I remember watching and just being like, "This kind of sucks." At least I thought.
yeah, like my early TNA experience is like seeing the 6-sided ring and like watching the X Division go crazy. So then like I just remember when they're like, "We're going head to head with WWE," and then it's like there's a 4-sided ring now. All of a sudden, like everybody that was cool is kind of like uncool.
Yeah. I mean,
Typical Hogan.
that's always interesting how like when they feel like the mentality when push comes to shove, they always feel like they have to like lose their identity in order to like compete, and that comes with I'll say some of that was AEW as well, but WCW, Impact, like your trademark is the 6-sided ring, and then you're like, okay, well, let's do a regular 4-sided ring. So
That was all Hogan and Bischoff, allegedly.
I mean,
I'm sure.
you can arguably say that Sting's best run was kind of in TNA.
Third Angle.
Yeah,
You think like even versus WCW, you're saying is
I think so. Honestly,
Well-
as far as like just his character and the way it was kind of handled, at least, because there was definitely just iconic stuff with WCW Sting, but just like the way his championship run was kind of like handled overall, and just all that shit just got really convoluted right when it should have been really good, and then it just went off the rails. Like I'm pretty sure that TNA was his better run. AEW was, the cherry on top, but his actual in-ring was best in TNA. Not to make this a TNA Sting podcast, but yeah, had to be said.
TNA wins again.
Yeah.
I mean, I brought it up. That was the head-to-head, but yeah, I mean, I think that specific moment in time, I got a taste of those Monday Night Wars because I was too young to like really comprehend it the first go around. That was not something that obviously as a fucking child brain person I was very like cognizant of. So just seeing this, even if it wasn't the same per se, just having some kind of semblance of that was pretty cool. And I mean, I think all the debuts and stuff was also pretty cool. That never fails to amuse me. So, but I think we can end it the segment there. And